Welcome, everyone. Buenas noches. Hola. I'm so happy to be able to visit with you tonight as we celebrate Hispanic culture at our college and around the country. I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm proudest of, in fact, is the fact that in 2015, we were recognized, Mercy, as a bright spot in Hispanic education. And that's the only place we want to be, since our Hispanic students represent the largest part of our student demographic, and they continue to grow. When I arrived here, maybe about 36% or so of our students were Hispanic. Today, for the last 3 years, it's been more than 50% each year. We're proud of that fact. We know that those numbers are only going to grow as we continue forward, and we're excited to be a part of that growth. Mercy is the largest Hispanic serving private nonprofit institution in the state of New York. I almost said Tennessee, where I used to be, but in New York, we're the largest nonprofit higher education institution serving Hispanic students, and we're proud of that fact. But it's not enough to be proud of that fact. What we're really proud of is not only that our doors are wide open to Hispanic students, but the fact that our graduation platform is wide open to Hispanic students. There's been a time in US history, and in fact in the history of this institution, where students who weren't white did not graduate with the same certainty as white students did, and that ought not to be the case. At Mercy, we've been working for more than a decade to make sure that we close the gap so that not only are our front doors wide open, but graduation is wide open for our Hispanic students. I'm happy to tell you that we have narrowed the gap, and I'm hopeful that in the next few years, we will see the graduation gap completely done away with. Already it's the case that our Hispanic students have been having better retention their first year than other students at the college. We think that's appropriate. We think it's something we're striving for, and I promise you we are striving for that. So I'm happy to welcome you here as an institution which values our Hispanic students and the communities from which they come, and who hopes that we'll make ever tighter the connections between Mercy, the community of Mercy, and the Hispanic communities from which our students are predominantly coming. So I look forward to getting to visit with some of you later on during the evening, but right now I just want to welcome you. I'm in my study at the home where we would normally be around the table. The table is not here tonight. I'm sorry to say I had to warm up some stew to have for supper, but I'm glad to have you here even if we can't be around the same table. So welcome.
Thank you, Tim, and we're going to hope that we can be around that table next year.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk about several things here. We're going to get to education and the success of our Hispanic students in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to our students, and I'd sort of like to just spend a little time talking about what Hispanic Heritage Month, which we are just rounding out tonight, means to them personally. So among our students joining us tonight is Daniel Montez, whom I know for his stellar volunteer work that he does at Mercy College. He is a member of the Business Honors Program. Daniel, just wave or something, would you, so everyone can see who you are? There you are. And he is also a member of the Mercy Leaders Club at our college. So Daniel, you start if you would, and just Hispanic Heritage Month, is it meaningful to you? And if so, did you celebrate with your family or with friends?
So unfortunately, I couldn't celebrate with my family this year because I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. But during this time, during this month, we usually gather around at somebody's house, and we usually play loteria or just family games. We usually have barbecues, and we obviously have to make grandma's secret recipes. We really truly value each other and the time that we spend with each other. And we also remember that no matter what, we do anything in our lives because the people that before us had worked in the fields. I've heard many stories of my grandma and grandpa just working day and night just to get income in for the family. And I will never forget what they shined away from just so that I have a better opportunity. And I couldn't be more appreciative of being a Mexican American and being able to vote and being able to use my voice and making sure that I pick my future. And because of my ancestors and because of my heritage and where I come from, I definitely take advantage, and I make sure to set the path for many more to come, because I know that I'm here to get a quality education that's going to put me to new heights in my career. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to even be living in New York for these 4 years. And I'm so excited and so honored to be a part of this program and share my story with you, because not a lot of Hispanics are heard, and this really makes a difference, no matter how small it may be.
Daniel, how is it for you this year?
It's definitely been a roller coaster, and it's definitely been life-changing. I've definitely had to grow up. This distancing from my family is probably the hardest part this year in particular, because I just became an uncle. So I'm very excited about that. But under circumstances, I know what is best health-wise, and I know that Mercy, living on campus, I feel as safe as possible. They have done everything they possibly could to make sure that I feel safe, and that that all the students are following the protocols. The staff members are helping, doing their part, and just really taking this pandemic seriously.
Another student who's with us is my friend and colleague, Ariana Aguilar, who is a grad student. She's in our MBA program. And she was a featured person on the, she'll never believe that I remember this, the My Westchester, 2018 version of My Westchester, which featured successful Westchester residents. She lives in Yonkers. And Ariana, same question to you. Has this month been fun, meaningful? Did you do anything special for it?
Yeah, hi Edie, how's everybody doing? Thank you for having us tonight. I'm actually so excited to be having this conversation. I grew up in Yonkers as a public school student, and every year this was, something that was celebrated in the public school. It's interesting to become an adult and to have it, sort of change in significance. But I remember when I was in school, this was one of the few times out of the year where I really got to hear stories about Latinos being successful in America, and Latinos influencing, Latinos and Hispanics influencing the culture of America. And so we got to hear some really fascinating stories. And in fact, as an immigrant child, that's how I really got acquainted with the richness of Puerto Rican culture, Central American culture, the history of workforce coming from other immigrant countries. So for me, it's always a really meaningful time. It's a meaningful time for me personally now as a professional to each year reflect on, the many ways that Latinos and Hispanics have, fought to make sure that they are present in the workforce and that they are present in industries that are often closed off to them. Now, as an adult, I myself have had those experiences where, sometimes I'm the only Latina in the room, or I'm the only, Mexican in the room for sure. And so those all have become part of the experience, I think, of my Latino-ness, the way that I live it here. I am very lucky to be in a place like New York that is so incredible in its diversity, and which embraces all of that diversity wholly and genuinely. And so for me, it's honestly a blessing. It's a great time to remember and remind myself of the ancestors that fought, so much so that I could be here voting as a woman, as a Latina, and that I could have my voice be heard in a different way than I think they could. So it's a great time for me.
And it's a blessing for Mercy, Ariana, that we have you here at the college, and we have your perspective in everything we do. That's very important.
Thank you. Yeah, we have, I now that I'm a student, I'm getting to see a completely different perspective of the community that makes up Mercy. And I'm thrilled to see, it's been a few years for me being out of school. So going back to school at this stage of my professional career is a little different. But what hasn't changed is the enthusiasm that I register in all of the young people, and also the older people like me who are coming in. There is such an enthusiasm for learning, and that's what I loved about being in college as a first generation student. And that is the same feeling that I get from the community here at Mercy.
Well, thank you. Roger, are you there? Roger Cruz? I know I saw you come in. You could wave too if you're there and just let everyone know where you are. I can't, Roger, can you hear me?
I can hear, you can hear me now. It wouldn't let me before, but now I can.
Oh, all right. Well, so Roger, tell us about who you are at Mercy and what this month means to you.
Okay, so right now I'm a senior at Mercy. I transferred here in my sophomore year, and currently I'm on the STEP team here at Mercy, Divas Have Mercy, which is now co-ed. And besides that, I'm part of the Media Studies program, TV production and radio. And this month means a lot to me because it just emphasizes culture. It emphasizes the great abundant culture that all Hispanic people carry with them. Because I know that whenever I meet another person who speaks the same language that I do, aside from English, which would be Spanish, it fills my heart because it brings me back home. Everything that just this month does bring me back home to a place where I know where my family is and what they do. And it's similar to others. And it's just, there's a whole lot of culture that I get to see besides my own, outside of from where my parents are from, which is El Salvador.
Is there one thing that you are most proud of in the history and culture of the Hispanic people?
Ooh, that's hard. But if I were to have to pick out of my top three, which would be music, art, and food, I would like to say music. Because it was something that my dad grew up with, and he would always, when we used to live in Queens, because I live in Long Island now, but I'm here on campus, he bought DJ equipment and bought a whole ton of CDs, brought some CDs back from El Salvador and started playing music in the house. We'd have parties, and they always knew how to entertain people. And he grew up teaching me different artists that he listened to when he was younger, like Los Bukis or Celia Reissig-Vasile, which is a bachata artist, but it's different from the other one I mentioned earlier. He taught me a lot of just different artists, and listening to the current music now, it really fills me up with joy to know that we're able to carry something that was taught to us and was gave us this immense nostalgia, and use it now. And then you feel that as you listen to the music now, if you can get what I mean.
I totally get what you mean. Ariana, Daniel, or really any of you want to jump in here? Is there anything particularly meaningful to you that you'd like to share about what fills you with particular pride from Hispanic culture?
For me, this year has been such a challenging year, right, for so many of us. Given COVID, but there's two elements that for me have stood out and have changed a little bit of my approach this year, and that is I definitely appreciate family in a different way than I think Latino culture has always had at its core, right, the love for family, right, the incredible, I think, unity that there exists, right? It's sort of like a typical thing, to sort of speak of how big our families are. But I think in this time, I have really come to understand that nobody, takes you through struggle in the same way that your family holds you through that struggle, that nobody will really, be there for you in the way. So I think for me, family is absolutely, vital and has contributed to so much of my resiliency. And then the other piece of it is that historically, I think Latino people are fighters, and I see that in so many of my young people, the young people that I see coming up, and so much of the immigrant population. And, in this climate right now that we're in, no matter where you stand, I think you are understanding, certainly if you're a Latino, the need, for you to really use your voice and empower yourself. So there's a lot of, I think, at least in my community, a lot of discussion about focusing on what's important, and seeking representation, and making your voice be heard. Because the only way that we're going to really value and take care of and spend time with our families is by ensuring that we are setting up systems where we are valued as individuals, and as laborers ourselves.
That was beautiful, Ariana. I want to introduce you to a member of the Mercy faculty. She is Celia Reissig-Vasile. Did I say that right, Celia?
Perfect.
And you can wave too, so everyone knows who you are, even though I know they can see your name on your little square there. She has taught at Mercy College for 25 years. She's in the undergraduate and graduate English programs and the modern foreign language program. And she has also served as director of the honors program, and she's currently chair of the Department of Literature and Language. And she's also a poet. And so we're going to be given a wonderful poem that she has written. But first, Celia, let me just ask you the same thing. What does this month mean to you?
Well, thank you, Edie, and thank you, everybody. It's a great honor to be here. Yes, I have been here at Mercy College for many moons. Actually, I'm former chair of the Department of Literature and Language. Right now, I'm just humble faculty. And it's meant, for so many years, for so long, Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm originally from Argentina, and I'm here with some of my family, and the rest of my family is in Argentina. And I think I celebrate, as faculty, I celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month every day. I take my task as professor of English, teaching also many of the Spanish courses, language and literature and culture, very seriously. And I developed and have been teaching Mercy College's only Latin American literature and Latino literature courses. And so I celebrate every day. I stress the importance of Hispanic, of Latino heritage, of Latino culture, and how it is expressed through its literature. And so I think I will go straight to the poem, because I want to give everybody an opportunity here, and I'm the only faculty member, so I'm feeling a little shy for a change.
Oh,
Anybody who's a faculty member knows that I'm not shy, but all of a sudden I'm feeling shy, kind of like the odd person out. So I want to read from my most recent publication, and I'll just show you the book here. It's called Huellas, Traces. So huellas means traces in English. So this is, it's not exactly a bilingual book. Some of the poems are written in English, some of the poems are written in Spanish, some of the poems are written in Spanglish. And my first play, a one-act play, is also in this book, and it's written in Spanglish. So the publisher is Editorial Duncan in Argentina, and it just came out, was just published a few days from, I'll confess, my 60th birthday. So it was a wonderful and very exciting birthday present. So I'll read the poem, and then if there's any more time, and I know, Edie, you will keep me on the straight and narrow, just like I do with my students. I'll be glad to, to speak to you if you have questions about the poem or whatever, but I know this is not a class. I understand that. But just a word more, in terms of my creative work, because I'm also a scholar, I also do a lot of research on Latino literature, Latin American literature, which I publish, I present in conferences. But this is really personal. in many ways, as poetry in particular of all, let's say, the literary genres tends to be particularly personal. So this book to me is really important because it's kind of my journey as an immigrant. What I left behind, what I have now, what does it mean to be a Latina, an Argentine American, who has now at this point lived more in the United States than in her native country. So this poem is called Rhetoric of Empire 1. Over at Westbeth, as far west as my feet could take me, through the streets of Chelsea, south of Union Square, north of Ground Zero, east of Newark's gritty streets, I came upon so many things. The projects strung across for blocks as the sun dripped over the Hudson, the beach where a stairway to nowhere climbed into the horizon, which seemed to linger longingly, yearning. From where on a distant rooftop in a distant time, I dreamt of it leading me somewhere as long as it wasn't here. En la bodega de la esquina compré café negro tan amargo que me quemaba la garganta. Huele a campos sembrados en primavera, regados con agua de canela, huele a la cocina de mi abuela. At Westbeth, I finally came to see beyond the words drawn across the canvas, through the cracks of a shattered humanity. And many voices came to me suddenly, voices that somehow, for some reason, I had come to silence, or that the empire silenced for me. I heard Ginsberg again, telling me that he saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, y ahora tiene un sentido tan crudo que duele. Even Neruda, the poet of my past lives, whom I hear sing when I still the urgent beatings of my heart as it strains to build paths amongst the mazes that seek to claim me. From heights that sought heavens, he sings of the roots of man and his primal communions with earth and water. I can feel his words be rhythms on my skin as I reclaim my language. Neruda me canta de lana y piedra y le da voz a los mudos. Muchas gracias.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
That was beautiful, Celia, beautiful.
Did you understand the Spanish? Un poquito.
Poquito is right, by the way.
Muy poquito, okay. So I take one of my Spanish classes.
But I know that many people in our audience did, I mean, among those of us assembled, did understand it. So we thank you for that. I want to acknowledge one of our elected officials who I think is with us now, Nathalia Fernandez, who I saw. Will you wave, Nathalia, just so we can see where you are? There she is. She's a New York City Assembly member from the 80th District in the Bronx. And we're so happy to have you. Would you like to share a few words about our event tonight?
1 minute. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Oh, I'm on the big screen now. Okay. Because I didn't see myself zoom in there. I literally have 1 minute because as the life goes, we got zoom, 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 zoom. But I had to stop in and listen to the great stories, the commentaries tonight, and always celebrate Hispanic heritage at any moment that we can have. I love that we're unique in that we start in the middle of 1 month and end in the middle of the next month. So technically, I think it's 2 months. But me, my heritage, my culture, I couldn't be prouder of it. And growing up, I was a bit of a different one. In elementary school in Rockland, one of the only Latinos in the class and in the school. So always having my heritage highlighted, at first was like, oh my God, stop looking at me. But now it's like, no, please know my heritage, know my history and the beautiful contributions that, the Latino culture has brought to this country, the city, the state, and yes, into this country, because I love John Leguizamo. He's a fellow Colombian American, and I'm Cuban and Colombian. and he has a Latin history from, which gives, you know, a bit of a crude but comical and very passionate and truthful timeline of history of Latinos in America and before. And I just love talking about, you know, our history and continuing to share it. So thank you for giving this space for students, teachers, administrators to show our presence, you know, because we are here. We're in every field, in every operation in this city and society, and sometimes we are just lost in the mix and you know, not seen. So to give that space for us here is appreciated, and I'm so proud of the students. Daniel, your story was amazing, and everyone else, I'm just incredibly proud of you and thankful to be in this room right here. So thank you so much, guys. I did put my little handle there on social media. You know, I run it, so feel free to put a message in the direct message. But I look forward to keeping in touch, continue to celebrate the great things Mercy College offers. Grateful to have it right near my district in, Waters Place. And I look forward to seeing more success stories of, you know, the greatness of Mercy College.
Thank you, Nathalia. We'll let you get onto your next Zoom. I wish you could stay. And
if you're still going, I can come back in. I'll check, but we'll see.
Okay. All right, that would be great, because we're gonna stop and actually break up into rooms and be able to, you know, really sort of breathe and talk to one another a little bit. So I hope you can come back for that, and we thank you for all of your support of Mercy College and Mercy in the Bronx in particular. So all right, I wanna turn the conversation a little bit to the educational goals and attainment of our Hispanic students, and we have a few people with us tonight. And again, I know it's totally annoying, but since there's so many of you, if you would wave just as I say your name so that we know who you are and where you are. Adriana Rodriguez is the Vice President for Programs at Excelencia and Education. There she is. For me, right in the middle. I don't know where she is for everyone else. Cosette Gutierrez is Deputy Executive Director at Latino U College Access. Cosette, where are you? There you are. Thank you for being with us. And Jose Herrera is with us. He is the Mercy College Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. And Jose, you are a first-gen student. There you are with the cool thing behind you there. You're first-gen, and Cosette, you're a first-gen too, right?
Yes.
So Jose, I'm going to quote you for a minute. When you first came, you told me you were looking for an opportunity to make an Hispanic serving institution, which we are very proudly, more successful. And it's a whole lot more difficult now in the world of COVID, but how is it going?
Thanks, Edie, and buenas noches, everyone. Thanks for coming to this great event. You know, it's going as best as I think we could have done. You know, the Mercy College has this wonderful trait that my grandma used to say, de los dientes para afuera. Some of you who understand it, from the teeth out. There are lots of institutions that are that way, that they speak and only the words come out in their teeth. But I think Mercy has it coming from the heart out. That is, it truly values the diversity. It truly values who their students are, the diversity of students, particularly the Hispanic students. As the president pointed out, there is an increasing number of our students that are taking up our seats, wonderfully so. So the gumbo that we have here at New York City, it just got a little spicier, I think, in many ways, because it's increasing the diversity and really the depth of what we can offer, not only the city, but also the state and the country.
And we were recently, our PACT program, we should say, was recently recognized by Excelencia in Education for its efforts on behalf of our Hispanic students. And in a COVID world, Jose, it's virtual, but is it still personal?
As much as we can make it. You and I and everybody else in this meeting, we're struggling with this sense of connecting with people. You heard it from a couple of our students. You'll hear it again from time to time. I think that we as a community have to develop new ways of connecting to people. The music really brought back that to me personally. It may have brought back that same instance to you, that there are ways that we can get connected. We're trying to develop ways to socialize and develop patterns of socialization within an online environment. This is something that I've also brought up to the president that we need to get better at. But right now, the students are actually engaged, and we have data to show that. We have data to show that the students are actually engaged within their online classes. So that's really good to hear. We're going to keep on top of that.
Adriana, can you give us a sort of 10,000-foot view a little bit about what you're seeing, what you're working on this year at Excelencia, and what specific challenges COVID has brought to all of us?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for inviting Excelencia to be part of your celebration here at Mercy College. Very excited to be here. And indeed, we have recognized the PACT program, but also appreciate Mercy College and President's Hall partnership and being part of our Presidents for Latino Student Success Network. And we are seeing great things out of the network as a whole, enrolling almost a quarter of Latino students nationally, but also we recently released data showing that presidents at institutions in our networks are also graduating almost a third of Latino students across the country. So we are seeing, again, that we are making strides and improvements and having Latino students make it to the degree and into career pathways. And so I would like to take the opportunity to say that we are rising, but the gap, of course, between Latino students and white non-Hispanics is still significant. It's almost a 20 percentage point gap. So it's still a ways to go, and that we really need to be able to accelerate the rate at which Latinos are achieving those degrees so that we are able to meet the needs of our ever-evolving economy here in the US.
What are colleges doing right and wrong, do you think? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, and I think part of it speaks to those practices that are supporting Latino students, and really all what we term at Excelencia post-traditional students. The traditional student that people think about that enrolls in college, the living on campus, entering the fall after graduation, that are, predominantly white, non-Hispanic, that don't work while they're enrolled, right? Like some of those elements of that traditional college student, we are seeing kind of fall away. Those only make up less than 20% of college students nationally. We have a different student who's starting to enroll, and Latinos make up most of those students who are sometimes parenting, sometimes first in their family to enroll. You mentioned first gen, I'm also first gen. And so that population is growing, and Latinos are the majority of post-traditional students. And so I think it would benefit higher education at Excelencia. We're pushing the mantle at higher education to recognize the change of who is enrolling, and then building the practices to support this new, the post-traditional student. And if they double down to really make it work for Latino students, they'll be making it work for all students.
And are there practices in particular that you might highlight that you think are especially effective for the post-traditional students?
Yes, in our recent, actually, the PAC program was in the announcement of the 2020 Examples of Excelencia, right? They were one of the finalists, and in that compendium, which is available online, we'll have it for folks to share afterwards. But we're seeing things like connectedness to career pathways, whether that's tightened career services, or we're also seeing advising, intrusive advising and partnering, mentoring, which I know is an element of the PAC program, right? So, and also, one of the themes that we saw through all the finals is that cultural competency, the cultural connectedness and relevance to really understanding Latino students. So those are just a handful of the practices that we highlighted among this year's 20 finalists.
Cosette, you have any thoughts about that, about what you're seeing? You have a particular lens here in Westchester, yes?
Yes, we do. Good evening, everyone. Honored to be here tonight representing Latino Youth College Access. For those of you that may not be familiar with our work, we're an education nonprofit here in Westchester County that focuses on supporting first gen Latino students in their quest to being the first in their family to go to college. We do so by helping them through the college applications process, but then staying with them through their college years. And what we've learned through this pandemic is that certainly our students need us now more than ever. And it was all about ensuring that they could see us and feel us and be with us whenever possible. So traditionally, everything that was done in person in terms of this coaching and this mentoring and the support had to pivot to virtual and Zoom. And as you can imagine, I think the students talked about engagement, and it was really important, as Jose said, to make sure that the students felt supported and engaged, and that even though we were doing things virtually, we wanted to still be there. So things that traditionally had been done in person, like their welcome, their family welcome, their meeting their coach, all of their training, we had to pivot and transform it in a way that was engaging. And for those of us that have been on Zoom for, the last 7-8 months, that after a while it definitely gets a little bit cumbersome. So coming up with creative ways, making sure that the students knew that they could be successful and that college was still a reality. So for our high school students, it really meant supporting them in ways that they didn't even imagine that we could. Everything from onboarding them to giving them all the tools. And then for our graduating high school seniors, letting them know that all was not meant to be forgotten. They had worked so hard to get their applications in order. And right when the pandemic hit was in the midst of when they would have been visiting all these campuses to help make their decisions. So giving them tools, providing virtual support, encouraging them, making sure that their financial aid was in place and supporting them so that they could transition to college. And, we couldn't be prouder of our college scholars. Most recently, we reached out to them, about 100, to say, what were your plans for returning to campus? And we were delighted to see that so many were still going to persist and be engaged. They were very resilient. So 56% said that they were going to be learning in a hybrid manner on campus. So they were going to be physically located on their campus, but attending classes either virtually or in person. We had another 16% that said, I'm not comfortable going back to school or going to the campus, or maybe I'm not allowed to go back, so I'm going to be taking those classes remotely from home. Another 16% commuted, and we're going to continue to commute to their campuses. And then the number that was really sort of eye-opening or delightful for us, that was only 3% said that they were not going to go back. And that was because they were going to pursue full-time internships. So for us, persistence is so important. As many first gen, once you stop, it's a little hard to return. So giving the scholars the most support possible so that they can make it, because we know that college is going to make a difference in their lives, not just their lives, but their families' future as well.
And, Jose, it's been important, the financial piece of this, which is so crushing and ominous. It's more important now than ever for us to help our students with that when we can, right? We for instance, started the Student Emergency Fund because they just have all these unforeseen things that are barriers to their wanting to stay in the game.
True. You can't do it without help in many cases. I think you need a community. I think you need an institution that cares about you financially. I think last year, I can't remember the value for this year, but last year it was under $2,000 for a student that had 0 estimated family contributions. That is a wonderful way to start out, to know that it's not the sticker price that matters. It's really the price that you're going to pay at the checkout line. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that Mercy does quite a bit in order to get the students to the checkout line with the lowest price possible.
I want to bring our students in just for a minute more. Daniel, Roger, Ariana, how are you coping in a COVID world with all the challenges that you have studying and working and feeling it sort of mount up more this year than perhaps in years past?
Well, I definitely started to reach out to my professors. I started filling them in on everything that I was going through. I kept them up to date, and I really just had built a connection, and I was lucky enough to have a great support staff. Dean Gibson, Robert Bond, Mike, Mr. Camillo, and Susan Cooper are some of the strongest people that I have in the School of Business that push me to my limit, and they always encourage me to reach for the stars and always continue to, do great in my education. And they always give me pride in myself, and especially Patricia from the other alumni department when I first met her. Now she's moved up, but she's definitely been there, and she's been my go-getter, and she's always giving me this hope, and she always reminds me that I have potential and that I could do whatever I put my mind to. And so having these staff members really support me like that, it keeps me optimistic during this tough time.
Well, I am so glad to hear that. We're gonna break up into smaller groups so that we can talk a little bit with one another, but I do want to recognize Estelle Lopez Sweetser, who's with us, who is new to the Mercy family from the College of New Rochelle. So if you want to wave and just tell everyone who you are, hi, and you are an expert in TESOL education, yes?
Well, I run a very lovely multi-million-dollar grant and here at Mercy. It started at the College of New Rochelle, particularly designed to serve children who were English language learners. And many of those students happen to be Spanish-speaking students. So we're very lucky that we were able to make that transfer and finish year 4, and now we're in year 5 to prepare teachers. And I see that Superintendent Ray Sanchez is one of our members in this Zoom meeting. He had many of his teachers participate in our program. So it's been very exciting. The goal is really to help language minority children, particularly Hispanic children in public schools, to have the best teachers possible to ensure that they not only acquire English, but are able to succeed academically, especially children in dual language programs, so they are truly bilingual and biliterate to be successful. Prior to that, as a professor, I was a director of instructional services for the city schools of New Rochelle, also supporting language minority children as well as reading teachers and so on. But more importantly, my work is to help folks work with children to be successful. And so it's been 45 years of this work, and I'm really happy to see that the journey has taken me to Mercy College.
And I guess we should do a shout out to Ray Sanchez, right? Ray, can you wave a little bit? He is from the Ossining School District, and we're so grateful to you, Ray, for being with us. And I also want to give Tim Hall a chance to give some final remarks. Tim?
Oh, nothing fancy. I appreciate everyone who was able to join us this evening. This is not the first time that we've had such an event, nor will it be the last, because we believe that our students come from particular communities and that the college is strongest when we are most strongly connected to and influenced by and beholden to those communities from which our students come. So thanks so much for participating. I'll appreciate if you can pass along any suggestions you have for future kinds of events. I'm sure there's lots we have to learn about how to do this, especially how to do this in Zoom land. So it's good to see everybody.
All right, yes, it is. Thank you so much. And thanks to all our students too, who I didn't mention by name. And I want to give a particular shout out to our advancement team and to Esther McCarthy, who was probably the person you were in touch with the most. Yeah, I have to do this too. Esther, thank you. She managed to get us from our group into individual groups in Zoom land and back again. I sort of think it's amazing. I hope we do it again. And anyway, all of you have a very good night, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Buenas noches, chao a todos.
Ciao, ciao.
Buenas noches.